Hey everybody, welcome back to another clear and sunny but chilly day in the Arizona desert. During about the week my ZJ was down with the coolant leak, needing the water pump and hoses and such. I was driving the CJ and some problems popped up with the CJ, and I really feel like I want to get those handled first because it is my backup right now for the ZJ. So let me show you. First thing you may notice here is the AEM air fuel gauge is gone. And it's gone for a couple different reasons. One, I feel that everything I wanted from it on this vehicle, it did. And secondly, and mainly, it died. I had a 3/10 of an amp parasitic draw on the battery, and it killed the battery that was in it. And it was an old battery anyway, 3 years old, and that's all you get out of batteries here. So I went down to Walmart and I got another battery. At the time, I didn't realize I had the draw. I got another battery and everything seemed happy, and went to fire it up the next morning and it was stone dead. So I have not diagnosed that yet. I have unplugged a couple of different things to see if that's the problem. I suspect it's probably the alternator, the diodes in the alternator. My other problem is the Holley pro-jection on this. If you haven't seen any of my earlier videos, this is a first version of the Holley pro-jection. It is the full manual pro-jection with the 5 control knobs in the box. And I bought this used like 25 or 30 years ago from somebody who couldn't get it to work right, and I put it on and I've never had an issue with it until I started driving this vehicle again, till went through all I've gone through in the past few years, kind of renovating this vehicle, and it still works good. I mean, vehicle starts up any temperature, idles okay, runs okay. And it used to run really good with this on here. And I've checked everything else. I've checked for vacuum leaks. I've done everything else I could do. And nothing is getting this vehicle to run as good as I would really like it to. And one of the problems I'm having is on the control box. There is choke and accelerator, and then there are adjustment knobs. And then there are 3 knobs for idle, mid-range, and power. And the problem I'm having right now is the idle and mid-range knobs do the exact same thing. You can't adjust idle separately from mid-range anymore, and that's not how it used to be. So I thought there was something wrong in the control box, because when I did the renovation on this vehicle, I had noticed a couple of the control knobs had been broken off, and one of them was actually broken loose from the main board. So I bought all new potentiometers and I soldered them in, and I broke a trace when I soldered it, and I knew I did it, and I replaced that trace with a solid wire. And I thought, well, maybe it was my crap work, maybe I did something else to it. So I found another control box on eBay. And that's another problem with this old pro-jection. They haven't made parts for this for a long time, for decades. And parts are hard to find, and when you do find them, they tend to be pretty expensive. People think they're made out of gold. So I found one for a reasonable price. It looked like it was in really good condition. I bought it from eBay for a pretty decent price, I think. And I hooked it up. I got the exact same problem. So it's not the control box. And I've reached the point where I don't want to fart with this thing anymore. It just seems like a mistake to leave it on here going forward, even though I have liked it a lot for many years. So then I started thinking about, okay, what am I going to do in its place? And of course, the easiest thing to do would probably be just to put the old Carter BBD back on it. Now, I don't have the old Carter BBD anymore. It's been gone for decades. And of course, Carter has been out of business for a very long time. So I'm going to have the choice between 50-year-old, 30 to 40-year-old carburetor, a genuine Carter BBD, or one of the aftermarket, mostly Chinese copies, which I have not heard very good things about. Some people say they're okay. Other people say, well, you can't really ever get them dialed in. They're okay, but they're not great. And that's pretty much what I got now. Now, there is a later fuel injection you can do from Howell. And of course, I could go out and buy a new Holley Sniper if I wanted to throw $2,000 at this, and I don't. Howell makes one, it's $1,500, and it uses a GM TBI, a GM computer, all remanufactured stuff, and a new wiring harness. They're $1,500, so I'm not doing that either. You could do, or I could do, the exact same thing Howell does with junkyard parts, and people have done it for as low as, $300. Get the wiring harness, the throttle body, and the computer out of a certain select years of a GM truck, Astro van, something like that, and you can, with an adapter plate, you can get it on here and work. And at least parts for those are still being made. But I'm not going to give Howell $1,500 because, one, I don't have $1,500 to throw at it, and two, it bothers me, it annoys me. I'm not going to go digging around in junkyards or trying to get companies to send me parts. That just seems like more work than I want to do now. So I was looking around on eBay, scratching my head and thinking, and this popped up. So this was an eBay auction for a Weber 3236 or 3632, depending on terminology you want to use, that claimed to have come off of a running Jeep CJ-7 with the 4.2. This is and I got this for a stupid price. This is a genuine Weber carburetor, not a Chinese copy. Genuine Weber, made in Spain, licensed to LCN, I think. Weber went out of business probably around the same time Carter did in the early 90s because we had the fuel injection and nobody really wanted carburetors anymore except some of the, the Italian and British sports car guys. But Weber went out of business and you couldn't get them anymore, and the family licensed it out to be made by several different companies, and I'm told the best ones are still the ones made in Spain. So I got this entire kit for $56 plus $16 shipping. So it came with air cleaner assembly, came with gaskets, believe it or not, came with the adapter plates and all the fasteners for the adapter plate, and came with, these are some extra bolts for the air cleaner, came with this, I'm not even sure what the hell that's for, to be honest with you, and it came with the carburetor itself, and the carburetor has the bell crank you need to get it to cook up to the factory Jeep throttle linkage already on it. Now, interestingly enough, let me show you right here. I don't know if you can see it here. This is a DGAV carburetor. The D means it's double barrels, and the A normally means that it has the water choke, meaning hot water from the engine runs through the choke to turn the choke off, but it looks like somebody converted this one to an electric choke. DGEV would have been the electric choke model, and I think the G means it's a right-handed carburetor, DF would be a mirror image of it, and the V, I think, means it's downdraft, I think. Can't remember. Anyway, there you have it. Weber by LCN, made in Spain. So this is a genuine Weber carburetor, and it is in stupidly nice condition. If you've never seen or dealt with the DG, with the 3236, it has a 32 millimeter barrel and a 36 millimeter barrel, and it's a progressive carburetor. When you open it, for the first 3/4 that it opens, and it's a mechanical progressive, only the main small barrel opens, and then when you open it further, the secondary opens up extra quick so that at full throttle they're both wide open. Now, interestingly enough, I took, just because I wanted to see the condition of things, I popped the accelerator pump cover off to take a look at the pump diaphragm, and the pump diaphragm looks brand new. So this carburetor either isn't very old, or it's been taken very good care of, or somebody rebuilt it at some time not long ago. It's even got the air cleaner gasket on it still. So, and I picked up a fuel pump, mechanical fuel pump, because I don't see any point in leaving the electric fuel pump in if I'm going back to a carburetor. To leave the electric fuel pump in, I would have to put a fuel pressure regulator on it somewhere, because the old pro-jection has one built into it. So tell me down in the comment section down below how crazy you think I am getting rid of an electronic fuel injection, even an old TBI Holley, and putting a carburetor back on it. And I know some of y'all will hate Weber carburetors and you'll tell me I'm nuts to put a Weber on it. But I have a fair amount of experience, not with this Weber, but with the 2-barrel side draft on Harleys and the 2-barrel downdraft on Volkswagens and Corvairs. So I've dealt with them a bunch over the years in the past, and Webers don't frighten me in the slightest. I think I'm going to go all old school on this. I don't want any more electric stuff in it to fail than I absolutely have to have going forward in my life. I want it to be old school. I want it to be reliable, if not perfect. And I think this is the direction I'm going in. So here's the electric fuel pump I have in it. It's just an inline pump. And I think I'm just going to disconnect it here, and replace that with a piece of straight hose. Job 1 done. The electric fuel pump is out of there. Okay, there is the fuel pump and all the wires that run from it, all the way up from the fuel pump, all the way up to the plug that goes into the loom under the hood. So, and that's a fairly new fuel pump too. I just put that in probably a year and a half ago. So I'm just going to start putting everything in a box. Let's get the throttle body off of here next. I've got some of the wires disconnected. Let's get the rest of these hoses disconnected, and let's get this off of there. That is one big ass single throat TBI throttle body. I wonder if that's part of the problem why they never really ran good at some RPM ranges, even though at one point in time this did run pretty good. Look at the adapter on the manifold. It's been so long, so many years since I've done this, I don't even remember it. Look at that adapter, how all that gets flushed down into that one middle part of the 2-barrel manifold. Interesting. A couple of things to note here with the throttle body off. First thing is this bracket for the throttle cable. I don't know whether that was part of the Holley kit or part of the original Jeep. Also worthy of note is this has a return line, a return fuel line, and that was stock on the Jeep. So the original setup, the fuel filter was a 3-nipple fuel filter. It had one for the return line, so I've got one of those coming for up here. And other than that, I got to get this rest of this wiring out of here that goes with it. I'm going to want to do a smoke leak detect on this. And I've got a smoke leak detector, and I actually have a brand new one that got sent to me for review that I haven't done yet. So I'll probably do that with that new one I have. Let's get those wiring out of there. I still have to put the new fuel pump in. All the wiring out, I think, and the wiring for that went back to the fuel pump still down there, and that's all the rest of it. And I've got the mechanical fuel pump in, and I have the fuel lines routed. I wish I had a 90 for that, but I didn't have one on hand. So I'll probably pick one up next time I go to the auto parts store, down to the hardware store. Now, the carburetor is just sitting there for now because I have an issue that's keeping me from putting it on. But I just kind of wanted to sit it there to kind of get an idea of how everything is going to go. And so far, I'm not too unhappy. There's my PVC connection under there. There's fuel in there. And of course, as I mentioned, there's going to be another fuel filter back here because the return line has to connect to it. And then this linkage still has me completely stumped. I'm going to have to look at the stock linkage to try and remember where the stock linkage goes, because it almost looked like the linkage needs to come, the cable needs to come up from the bottom, and I'm not yet sure how that's going to go. But right now I have a slightly bigger problem to deal with first. Well, not a bigger problem, and that is one of these 4 holes, this one here, where it threads into that lower plate, is stripped. So I've got to get that back off of there. And they don't go in very far. I mean, if it was steel, it'd be fine. But it's not, of course, it's aluminum. So there's at least half the threads left. And I could get a little bit longer bolt in there. But See, they don't go in very far. I'm thinking I should probably just repair that now rather than later. So I think I'm going to pop that back off and probably put a helicoil in there, or a time cert or something. Next morning out, I am waiting for some parts from Amazon. My lens all filthy again. God, it is. Hang on. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. These goofy square holes, you can see there's one here in the firewall, and they pop in with these plastic clips that break as soon as you try and remove it. But the other end went down to that bell crank that was down in there, and that bell crank redirected the movement this way and pulled on the old BBD carburetor. I have seen that thing floating around here. I don't throw anything away. I have like 4 boxes full of different Jeep parts. And I mean, I got some crap that predated me taking that off. I have all the old smog pump and all the pieces that go with the smog pump, but I cannot find that bell crank anywhere. I can buy another one. I mean, I can spend 50, 60 bucks. They're all over eBay. I don't really want to spend 50, 60 bucks. That's as much as I spent for the entire used Weber carburetor kit. Also, there is a bracket that it looks like Redline makes, which has this square hole in it and is designed to connect to, and I asked the seller a question on eBay, and they responded to me immediately, and it says it connects to the narrow side of the carburetor and gives a place for the stock cable to connect. Well, that's great, except here's the stock cable, and this is the longer one of them. So in order for that to work, it would have to go in here. Now, this cable's toast. It's junk. It's just so old and hardened and broken that it would have to go in there, and then it would have to come around here and turn that corner. And I'm not sure I think that's really long enough. And this is the longer of the 2 cables for this. The V8 cable is shorter, if I remember right, and the 6-cylinder cable is 21.5 inches, and that's 21.5 inches from there to there, not the length of the outer piece. So, boy, that's asking a lot of that cable, even a new one, which is bendy. So that's my section op, and they want 20 bucks for that little bracket, kind of like this one. I could modify that one, which I'm not going to do. I could buy that bell crank, which I'm not going to do. Or I'll just fabricate some piece that comes off of these bolts out to there. I could also come off of these 2 bolts down here, which might be the better thing to do rather than put it under the carburetor bolts. I really don't like that idea. I'd rather put it down here and where it threads into cast iron, because this is a cast iron manifold. The other thing I want to do while I'm out here today, while I'm waiting for the parts to arrive, is I think I still have this 3/10 of an amp draw. Let's take a look. So yeah, I still have a 1/3 of an amp draw. All right, so I unplugged this 2-plug pin going into the alternator that goes into, you know, the voltage regulator on this GM style alternator. Here we go. Let's see if that is going to fix it. Yeah, now I am down into the milliamp range. Just switched 12 volts to the electric choke, and I just want to make sure the electric choke is working. Because other than that, I think although there's no throttle cable connected to it, I'm still battling a throttle cable. I bought a universal throttle cable, one that I thought was going to work, from Amazon. Pretty inexpensive, about 18 bucks. But when it arrived, it was missing all the end pieces that were supposed to be in the box with it. And I wound up sending it back to Amazon. I was going to have them send me another one immediately of the same one. But as I was looking around on Amazon, I found a throttle cable that looks like it goes on a Gremlin, because that might work best with this. Because the problem is, I want to come around from the hole it goes in, and instead of going down to that ridiculous bell crank and then having to have the other bell crank up here, I just want to come around under here and have it go directly into the throttle. I don't want all that extra crap. But the stock 21-inch cable, I don't think's long enough. So I found that one on the Gremlin, and I think it's going to work. Definitely getting warm. So that's where I'm at. I believe everything is connected up. I got my fuel filter back here with the inlet and the outlet and the return line. And I know you guys are going to tell me I need to put a fuel pressure regulator in it because Webers will only need 3 psi of fuel pressure, and any more than that you'll overwhelm the needle and it'll flood. But I have run Webers before with mechanical fuel pumps. A mechanical fuel pump only puts out 4 or 5 psi. So I'm going to try it without one because I've done it before, seen it done before, and it's worked. Yeah, look at that. That is definitely nowhere near as much spring pressure on that now. All right, I'm really excited about getting this running. I'm going to turn it on and let the choke cool down, and then I'm going to crank it a bit to get some fuel around, and we're going to see if this thing will start. I just had an idea. Before I go taking the carburetor apart, let's see if I shoot some gas down it, if it doesn't fire, because everything I pulled out of there, maybe I disabled the ignition. That'd be something I might do. So I'm gonna shoot some gas. Whoops. I'm gonna shoot some gas down there. That should be plenty, and we'll see if it doesn't start. Because maybe I somehow screwed the ignition up. Yep, no spark. That's my problem. Well, I figured out my spark problem, and y'all are going to laugh at me, and you deserve to, because I laughed at myself, and I'm going to tell you why, because you know what? We all need something funny to happen now and again, even when it happens to us, right? So when I was looking for my 12 volts, switch 12 volts for my electric choke here, I found this wire over here, and it was switched 12 volts, and I thought it was coming from out of this connector. And I figure, well, I don't know what it goes to, but it goes on and off with the key, and that's good enough for now. Well, it wasn't coming from under the dash. It was coming from within this loom over here. It was the tack signal wire from the distributor. I'm scratching myself on the head saying, this distributor only needs 12 volts. It's got it. Why do I have no spark? Well, it's because I grounded my tack wire. So as soon as I undid that, and I'm going to have to do something with it over here, I do have a tack and I do want it hooked up. I'm going to have to get it tied out of the way until I get to the point where I can use it. But I have spark now, and I do believe it should start. So I'm hoping anyway. So let's choke is fully shut because the key's been off. So let's give it a shot. Turn the key on. Key is on. I have the remote starter hooked up at this point, so I'm just going to go ahead and use it. Jesus. Thank you, Jesus, I meant to say. That's probably the easiest first start I ever remember having. That's the best this has run since I started it up after its many, many years rest, decade rest. Wow. See, that's how I knew this engine should run. Boy, that runs good. Jeez. I didn't do anything to this carburetor either. Holy cow, that's running good. So I'm going to end this one here for now. Sun's going down, my back's barking at me, but we're going to come back. I'm going to get that throttle cable in. I got a couple of options on the throttle cable. Going to get that in, going to get the bracket made, Gonna get a test drive on it and got to put that alternator in too. Anyway, we'll get all that done and we'll take her for a test drive in the next one.